Hello and welcome to the Post to Post podcast, episode 101 for this March 8th, 2020, International Women's Day. Also, daylight savings, we lost an hour.
So a good day because of the Women's Day and a bad day because we lost an hour.
Terrible day because of the hour. If we were wondering why this day was getting off to a late start, that's why. We just lost an hour.
That is why. My name's Neil.
Oh, yeah.
That's Jason.
I'm Jason, yeah. I am recovering from a nasty flu, not coronavirus, that I know of anyway.
Better not be.
I've had it for a week. I started feeling better Friday, but I got this crazy cough and like this mucus that's just in my throat that just can't seem to get out of my system. So hopefully I don't cough too much in this. We'll try to edit out where we can. So yeah, let's get into this. Right off the top, I wanted to say that we're going to be doing some highlight videos on the YouTube channel of this podcast. So those highlight videos are going to be segments of topics we have in the podcast that we talk about. So like if we spend 20 minutes talking about XYZ, then maybe we'll release that as a separate video to attract new people into the podcast channel. So if you listen to our podcast and then you see the highlight videos after, there's nothing new for you there. Don't waste your time in watching them. That's mainly to attract new people who do searches into YouTube and attract them to the channel.
Yeah, not everyone has time to watch an hour and 20-minute podcast. So maybe someone has a really, really busy week and they can't watch the podcast like they usually do. But worst case scenario, they can catch the highlight videos throughout the week.
Yeah, so... Yeah, you're right. So it's mainly to bring new people in who don't know about the podcast, or for people who just are short on time and they see a topic that we talk about that maybe they're interested in. There's a couple of things Neil wanted to say off the top before we get into things, so I'll let him do that and then we'll jump right in.
Yeah, I just want to mention, I know it pops up on all of my videos on the bottom at the beginning on the Post Productions channel, but I don't mention it in the podcast, and I probably should. If you guys want to save $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek, all you need to do is use the code Post to Post and save yourself $20. So I should be mentioning that more because a lot of people go to games and concerts and everything, and SeatGeek is a popular site. So
save $20, save $20.
Save $20, yeah, and it's a good way to support us, and thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to say is that I have partnered with a jersey company, and a very prominent jersey company, and that means a lot of great things for you guys. It means giveaways, it means discounts, and it means you also get to support me through collecting jerseys, which you're going to do anyway. So it's pretty cool. I'm working out the kinks. There's a couple of little things I need to wrap up to get it going, but that should be announced hopefully Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of this week, depending on how it goes. So you guys can keep an eye out for that. I have a jersey unboxing to do. I bought my first Pro Stitch jersey, and I already filmed it. Super excited about it. Can't wait to show you guys that. I posted a sneak peek on Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, it's at Post to Post Show. And so you guys will see that jersey. You will see the announcement in that video. And yeah, pretty excited for it. And the last thing I have to say before we actually get into the main topics here is that, remember a couple of days ago when I said that I had a gift for you?
Yes. Kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, I have that here, and I'd like to give it to you if that's okay.
Oh, no. I'm nervous.
When I walked in, you asked me what was in the bag.
Yeah, he said a laptop and a phone.
Foam.
Oh, foam. I thought you said a phone. I said, who puts their phone in a bag?
Well, Joey was here last week with a bunch of jerseys. And I know you need a new Boston jersey.
Oh, no way. Really?
So I found that one online. Now, I didn't put a name, I didn't get a name or number on the back because I didn't know who you wanted. And that's actually why I asked you that last night. Because I actually don't know who your favorite player is of Boston. So I got a blank, and when you're ready to put a name and number on it, just let me know, and I'll pay to get it done.
Man, I got some post-to-post merch, peeps.
Post-to-post merch.
That's awesome. The awesome Boston third jersey.
Yeah, the one with the nice collar. I wasn't sure what size to get, but I got a large, so that should be.
That's what I'm all about.
Should be good.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. You deserve it. Let's do it.
Okay, so right off the bat, we got to talk about coronavirus because it's everywhere. It seems like every day there's more steps being taken or more things being canceled or reduced. We got a lot of people out there that are saying that too much is being made of it, and another group that's saying, well, it's better to err on the side of caution. So before we even jump into it, which side are you on right now?
I find myself going back and forth, and it changes by the day. I'm trying so hard not to be influenced by the general media, which I think is overplaying this to get views and to not necessarily cause a scare or cause a panic, but I think they're just doing it because they know people are listening. They know people want to hear about that stuff, so they're taking advantage a little bit on the headlines and the stories. So
that's just how most media companies are now, though, because fear sells, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I actually track the coronavirus every single day. I have a website that shows me a map globally and for which country, that there's like circles for every country, and it shows you how serious it is in each part of the world. I don't know the website name off the top of my head, but I think we're up to 107,000 cases globally with over 3,500 people killed so far, or something like that. It's a hard topic to talk about because there are so many things that it affects when it comes to the NHL and hockey in general. So I'm trying to be optimistic in the sense that I think that it's being overblown a little bit, but I can understand some of the decisions when it comes to players, like not allowing NHL players to interact with fans as much or at all. I don't know how I feel about them potentially removing all the fans from the arenas for upcoming games, and we'll get into that as well. But I struggle going back and forth. Like I don't think we should sit back and do nothing, because that would be lazy.
I think it's better to be proactive than reactive.
Yeah. Now, canceling the women's tournament in Nova Scotia that's coming up because of the coronavirus, I think that's a bit of an overreaction.
And that was done at the request of the CDC in Canada. That was their recommendation. Because even places like San Jose, I don't know what his title is. He's like the public health regulator or whatever. He's recommending that large-scale gatherings like sporting events should not be happening right now. And so it's a recommendation that they don't do it. And obviously, San Jose still had games this weekend. But apparently that individual can change that from a recommendation to a mandate, which legally prevents them from having those. So he can actually step in and say, no, you're not having fans in the arena.
Interesting. I know that's happening in other places around the world for other sports and soccer and stuff in Italy. And I think all major sporting events in Italy at the moment don't have fans.
Yeah.
Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But.
Yeah, no, we'll get into it. So right now, here's the impact on the NHL. So the NHL employees who are employees of the league, not club employees, so not like scouts and stuff like that, but people who actually work for the league, they're not allowed to have international travel right now outside North America.
Which is an issue because NHL is putting such
that's right,
a push on international, or growing the game internationally, specifically in China.
So they said if their employees travel by their own choice, if they go on vacation or if they do their own thing, they have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. It was reported that they were going to close the locker rooms to all the media. So like after the game, they have the scrums. They weren't going to let people in there. And I read this on like 15 different websites. Yeah. And even this morning, it's still saying it. But Gary Bettman came out with a statement last night that said this is not yet the case, but could change in the future. But if you look at this online, there's so many different articles saying that they are closed. And then Bettman's coming out saying the earlier reports stating that we are closing locker rooms are not completely accurate because it hasn't happened yet, but it may happen.
Maybe it was a recommendation and not a mandatory.
I don't know. Maybe because I think Elliot Friedman was the first person I seen that put it out, and he said they're going to be doing this.
How do you feel about that?
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it regardless of the virus, because interviews after games are the worst interviews in any sport. It's the most generic softball questions. Hey, you guys did really good tonight. How do you think your team played? You just answered it in your own question, you wet tit. I'm fine with no interviews, player interviews. In between periods,
they're half dressed, they're walking around,
they're sweaty. Yeah. It doesn't even, I don't even need to see that. Interview them at practice.
But they're still going to do the interviews. They're just having them in the press room.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the interviews, if they do close the locker rooms, are still going to happen in the press room. So they're just going to have a table set up, kind of like they do in the playoffs, and have a couple players and a coach or whatever, and you can ask them questions. It's just not going to be full access that the media's used to.
I think that's fine because, in the locker room, like you said, they're sweaty. There's a lot of random fluids going around in the locker room. So I think that's a smart decision to be proactive.
So Bettman says the NHL is staying on top of all things, and they're aware of all the possible alternatives that they may have to deal with, and they are ready to implement those alternatives if they are something they have to react to. So on Hockey Night in Canada last night, they had a little bulletin board come up with 3 points of the contingency plans. So number one was they have asked all teams for available building dates later in April in case some of their games have to be postponed. Which, I mean, depending on how bad this gets in certain situations, there could be a lot of games postponed.
It gets really complicated.
Like postponing seems like it wouldn't really be a great option if this is going to be a long-term thing, which I think it's going to be.
It's going to be a long-term thing. Like this is happening at the worst times.
Yeah.
15 games left until the playoffs. I don't know.
They have lined up potential neutral site venues in case only specific regions become unsuitable to play. And as before, I kind of said San Jose. So if the guy steps in and says, nope, you're not playing games here anymore, the NHL is looking for a neutral site that San Jose can play in, and some similar situations to that.
The good news is about San Jose is they're not going to be playing any games in the postseason.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Finally, the last one is they discussed playing in empty arenas as a worst case scenario, which is just something that you mentioned earlier.
I think it's weird, and it sucks financially for obviously the city that they're playing in, but it's smart. I mean, realistically, it's pretty smart you're bringing in 20,000 people who are all interacting and buying food and touching. You're sitting close together in these little seats and stuff. And
like you were telling me the other day, there was one of the concession stands operators actually had the coronavirus, and he was handing food out to people.
Yeah, I can't remember what sport that was or where. I think it was in LA maybe or something like that.
I can't remember,
but I mean, it's preventative. It's smart. It's going to be weird to see those games on TV when someone scores a goal and no one cheers.
Yeah.
That's going to be really strange.
It's going to look like the Winter Classic kind of, because you don't really see any fans when it's top down, but then it's going to be so quiet.
And the horn's going to go off, but will they still play the horn?
Like, do they still celebrate?
I think they still celebrate. I don't think they play the horn, though. Who are they playing the horn for?
They're playing it for people at home, I guess.
Do they play the goal song?
Yeah.
Do they play music in between whistles? I don't know. Is there an announcer?
That's interesting.
I don't know.
Like, I almost don't want this to happen, but I kind of do, just to see what would happen.
Is there a national anthem?
Yeah.
I assume that there probably would be a national anthem, just because it's tradition, but...
And I was reading something, I don't have it in my notes, that they were saying that some of the players may start taking the anthems in the tunnels.
In the tunnels?
Yeah, so that didn't really make sense to me, but I didn't put that in my notes because it didn't really make sense.
You're not going to get sick through music.
Like, I don't know if they just didn't want them out in the ice, or like, it doesn't make sense. That's what they're playing, so... Okay, so staying on top of this coronavirus, this is what other leagues have done, and a lot of this we've already brought up. So the IIHF canceled the Women's World Hockey Championships, which was March 31st, April 10th in Halifax. And like I said, that was because of recommendations from the CDC and Health Canada.
At the moment, Atlantic Canada doesn't have any coronavirus cases. It would be terrible if that was the event that caused Atlantic Canada to get it. So I understand... but they didn't cancel the men's one. I don't know if you said that or not. I think it's on there.
So
because that is in May?
It says the Men's World Hockey Championship, which is scheduled to be played May 8th to 24th in Switzerland, has not yet been canceled. He's going to wait until March 15th before making additional comment. However, he did say if there are no crowds, they will not play.
Yeah, I mean...
That was Renee Fazel, who's the president of the IHF.
They have the luxury of having a little bit more time on their hands to see how this plays out. But, I mean, Europe is in... turmoil right now with the virus.
Jumping on that, says Europe and Asia sporting events are being canceled or being played without fans. So you got like 110,000 capacity soccer stadium with nobody in it. Just eerie and weird to me.
It's very strange. It's very strange. And this is off topic, but I just read before I came here that Japan is offering interest-free loans to companies because of the people aren't buying as much. The employees are staying home.
Yeah.
There's if all these companies who are all suffering the same problems.
Well, there's a lot of weird things happening. Like they said, China's greenhouse gases are down 25% because manufacturing just get killed by this.
Yeah, it has such a
stock markets are getting jammed. Like it's obviously impacting more than just sports. But
yeah. Oh, I also read something else. If you're into stocks and stuff, cruise lines are way down at the moment. If you're gonna buy now for cruise ships because it's a good time apparently.
The last point I think I have here is the NBA has informed teams that they may have to play their games without spectators. And LeBron James came out and said, if there's no fans, I'm not playing.
Whoa.
He said, every game I played for the fans. If there's no fans, I ain't playing.
What about the fans at home, which is the majority of the fans?
I guess it doesn't matter. He said, no fans in the arena, I ain't playing.
What's his threshold? Did he say like if...
Well, I don't know because I think it's either a full arena or none. I don't think there'd be like a I don't think they're going to limit the amount of fans. I think they're going to.
Well, it's a good thing the LeBron James doesn't play for the Ottawa Senators.
Can you imagine if they limited the amount of fans and they just said you have to have at least 3 seats between you and another party that's not with your party? So you're able to sell your capacity, but you have to have 2 or 3 space seating. Like, I wonder if they do something like that where you can fill half of your arena or you can fill a quarter of your arena, or if it's just like, nope. Because I think technically they want anything over 10. In San Jose, it's anything over 10,000 they want canceled. I think it's 10,000.
That's a good question. How do you police it?
It would just be up to they would have to make certain seats available on Ticketmaster, and then.
So if you had say 2 seats in between people, if a guy or a husband and wife went to a game who are traveling to the game together, but still have to sit 2 seats away from each other?
They would sit beside each other because they're a party. But
okay.
But between you and another party, you have to have so many seats away. And maybe you can't have someone directly behind you and in front of you either.
It's like staggered or whatever.
Yeah, so they'd have to figure out the puzzle. Like, that just seems like a headache to me.
That's such a headache.
But like, what's going to happen? Like, it's good that they're looking at neutral zone sites for places like San Jose. Because, I mean, if you play even, 5 games, maybe the health guy steps in and says, no more games here. So you have to play those 5 games without fans. Like, that's a lot of ticket revenue you're losing.
Oh, and think about the playoffs.
And does it affect the cap? Like, if we start playing games with no fans in the stadiums, that's going to affect hockey-related revenue. Does that affect the projected cap for next year? Because they're projecting how much money they're going to make, and based on that projection, that's what they're setting the cap for.
Yeah, which that's a really good point. I think you're probably right.
Like, I don't know how much...
We're talking...
like, you could be talking $1 million plus per game, depending on market. It depends. Like, some markets obviously way less. Places like Toronto obviously way more.
With playing on a neutral site, we kind of talked about this last night off camera, but if this happens in the playoffs and they're cutting out fans from the playoff games and they're playing at a neutral site, if they played every single playoff game in the same arena and staggered the time and had every player in the same hotel, all the players in the same hotel, and had like just the entire league quarantined it didn't matter. It doesn't really matter what arena it's in. It doesn't have to be an NHL arena. It could be in Quebec City.
Yeah, as long as it's regulation size and
Fredericton here. Like, it's any place that can hold cameras or is already equipped with camera technology or whatever. That's probably going to be good enough. So that's going to be so strange if that happens.
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because what if it's only sectional? What if Boston can't play games with fans? But Edmonton, things are fine in Edmonton. Edmonton can play games with fans. That's not really fair.
That's what I think this is going to be. I don't think it's going to be a blanket. It's going to be, okay, San Jose, you can't play with fans.
I mean, the NHL is literally just going to have to...
But it sounds like to me that they're playing without fans was their third contingency option. The second option was the neutral site. So it sounds like they would move the games to a different arena before they would play without fans. Because I guess that helps with the ticket revenue, but you're not going to necessarily sell what you would have normally because it's not your home team fans going there. It's some other place that could be nowhere near the original.
If they move, so we'll say San Jose plays Ottawa. If they move San Jose, Ottawa, the game that was supposed to happen in San Jose, we'll say they move it to Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
Where maybe things aren't critical there. Do they still pack the arena with fans there?
It would depend on the local market whether they want to go to that game or not.
I guess, but...
Yeah. I assume their neutral site would be a place that they could fill to capacity. Or they would allow to fill it to capacity.
They would move it with the intentions of still selling tickets. They wouldn't move it and then also play in an empty arena.
No, I don't think... I think if they were going to play in an empty arena, they would stay in the home arenas.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, why would you...
So they're basically looking for a neutral site... And then I think the third contingency kicks in. Okay, the neutral site's not working, or there is no safe place to play with fans anymore. Maybe like the health person for the entire United States just comes out and says, nope, no more large gatherings over 10,000. And then they'll just stay at home and play without fans, which will obviously impact financial things.
I wonder. Yeah, I don't know.
The question is, do you think we're going to get to that point? It would be interesting. Like, in a way, it's kind of, well, it's not good. Like, there's only 15-ish games, plus minus, 17, whatever, left. And then there's playoffs. So the playoffs could be impacted for sure. But if this was like November and we had the whole rest of the season to look at, we could be looking at significant games played without fans or neutral site.
Yeah, it's good and bad timing in a way. I think that, I don't know, it's hard to predict. It's hard to say. I think there's going to be a bigger break in between regular season and playoffs. Usually I think we have like 5 or 6 days, but from the end of the season on Saturday, and I think it starts on like Thursday or Friday or whatever of this upcoming week. I think we're going to see a bigger break in between there while they figure stuff out. I don't think we're going to have everything ready to go by then. I think because of the way that it's snowballing. I mean, the United States went from like 200 cases to 467 cases or whatever in the last 48 hours. And if you look at the map, it's not just on the coasts anymore. It's scattered all around Boston inward. It's in Minnesota. It's in Michigan. There's like Seattle, little dots everywhere, all around the United States now. So it's just going to snowball.
And I mean, another thing that I didn't write in my notes is it's also affecting Seattle's preparation to sell season tickets. So they said they may delay selling their season tickets now because they wanted to give fans a chance to come to the arena and actually look at the seat in person. Like, hey, if you're going to come and spend $10,000+, we want to give you the opportunity to come and meet us and to individually pick your seats in person. And if you can't do that because of this virus, or if you're scared to come out, then we might just delay doing that, which is what they're talking about.
Interesting. I wonder if the whole virus thing just changes the way that people or little things work in general, like dryers when you or not dryers, like hand dryers after you wash your hands in the bathroom. Some of them are push.
Bacon pushers.
Some of them are
push button,
censored.
Push button, get bacon. Remember the symbol? It's like a push,
and
then like little lines coming out. It's like push button, get bacon.
And hand soap, like you press it to get the hand soap. Some of them are motion censored.
Yep.
I wonder if we'll see that just be removed entirely from everywhere, where it's mandatory. Governments say, listen, if you have a public restroom, you need to have censored toilets, censored soap, censored whatever. There's so many little things that trickle down from this virus that could change in a global perspective, in an individual perspective. Like, it's just, there's so many little threads to go on. I mean, we could really talk about this for an entire podcast about the coronavirus and what could potentially happen. I
don't even know how long we've been talking for, but we've only been covering one angle of it, which is the sports angle, specifically hockey. Like, we haven't talked about, the political, the financial, the impact on people's lives. Like, this is definitely.
And there's some sports where, like NASCAR.
And it is affecting NASCAR.
There are some, like, would NASCAR races still go on? I think they would, because there's some tracks that don't just even get barely any attendance anymore. So I think some sports will go on, and some sports will kind of hold off.
I don't think NASCAR would be impacted that much, because I don't think the racers are aware of the crowd really. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, they're in a fast car, they're paying attention to their laps, their turns and stuff like that. It's loud. Like, it's a lot different when you're like on the NBA, when you have fans sitting 3 feet off of courtside. And the home momentum is getting you going. Like, home games and football and stuff like that, like, that makes a big difference. If it's a quiet arena, it's almost like you're just out having a practice. And even when you go to practice, normally you have fans watching you. So this would just be completely weird.
And in NASCAR, only about 30% or maybe less of the track has fans on it now. Yeah. So, I mean, that some sport, it's going to be different for every sport. Like golf. There's fans of golf, but I think the majority of people watch golf on TV.
Yeah, unless Tiger's playing, then Tiger has a crowd following him. So anyway, we'll stop there with that. We'll follow it. We'll see where it goes.
Next week, we could do an entire podcast.
See, that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it in this week, because I like looking back. Like I was telling you, like a couple weeks ago, I started listening to our first couple podcasts over again, and how much stuff was different. Like, number one, it was kind of weird listening to how we were talking stuff because it was so new, but just the things we were saying and talking about, like we were talking about goaltender interference, which seems to not have been an issue in a long time. We haven't talked about that in a while. There's a lot of little things came up like, man, that used to be a big issue. That used to be a big issue. We haven't really talked about it anymore. So I want to see where this goes. Like, maybe the things we're talking about now is like, man, we were so naive to think that wasn't going to be a big deal, or this could happen. Or maybe we want to say we were worried about nothing, and maybe some of those people that are in that, camp were right.
Yep. I tell you one thing though, the podcast will go on.
The podcast will go on. My coronavirus is gone.
Yeah. And luckily with my job, I could technically work from home. So I'm going to be okay, luckily.
All right, so let's get into the Boston Bruins Tampa Bay Lightning game from last night.
Dude, that was nuts.
If you guys didn't watch that game, that was a playoff atmosphere game if I've ever seen one.
If you have Rogers NHL Network or whatever, and you can go
NHL
back
TV in the States.
Yeah, and you can go back and replay and watch that game. If you missed it, honestly, it's worth it. It's worth the 3 hours just to or maybe 2 or 1.5 just to watch it, skip through it, whatever. Man, what a great game. It felt like a playoff game. There was hitting, there was fighting, there were great goals, unexpected things like shorthanded goals.
2 shorthanded goals on the same friggin' power play.
Yeah, there were personnel kicked out.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
So 56 hits in the game, 94 penalty minutes. So that tells you everything you need to know. Crowd was loving it. So it's like Neil said, we were watching the game last night together, and he said, suck on that, Gary Bettman. People don't want
you're telling me that people don't like physicality and hitting in the NHL anymore and fighting. Look at the crowd at the Garden last night. Or not the Garden, what do they call it now?
It's TD Garden.
TD Garden.
Yep.
Used to be
Boston Garden.
Boston Garden, yeah.
Now it's Toronto Dominion Garden in the heart of Boston.
Yeah, it's the Toronto Dominion.
So Tampa ends up winning the series 3-1. So Boston only won the one game, which was like last week. They won 2-1.
I mean, the thing about it is it's not a random matchup like Philadelphia and Arizona. These two teams could play each other in the second round.
These are the 2 best teams in the league right now. 1 and 2.
Yeah, points wise.
So, like we said, it got off to a really bad start. Boston got a power play, and Tampa put in 2 shorthanded goals on the same power play. So you don't deserve to win a game after that.
You don't deserve to win a game.
Yeah. So they went down 3-0. The game was halfway over. It was 3-0. And I said to Neil, "This is over. Like this is a blowout." And basically, once it hit 3-0, it just turned into a fiery.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
After the 3-0 goal, I think I showed you a clip that we missed when we were in your studio. So Marchand goes in and kind of puts a little poke on the goaltender, and 4 Tampa Bay guys just swarm him in the corner. And then from that moment on, the rest of the game, it was just physical, like lots of fights.
Yeah, well, Boston started to get involved physical. They started to get back into the game, and then it was it was pretty close after the second, and then the third started, and they kind of stopped playing physical, and then they lost control of the game again.
Yeah,
and then they started playing a little bit more physical, and kind of came back. So if these two teams play each other, I fully expect this series to be probably the best series.
It'll be a good one
at the time. And I don't know if maybe you told me this or I just saw it on Twitter, but the former GM or owner of the Lightning said that he is incredibly impressed.
Oh, that was on the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast. They showed his tweet.
Yeah, he's impressed with how much different this team is.
He's like, this is what I'm talking about, this physicality that's been missing for 6 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So Pasternak scored again last night. He's got 48, which puts him back in his first place.
He's going to get 50.
Ovechkin's second with 47. Matthews is third with 46. Corrali, I believe it was, scored a goal with like 1:23 left in the second period. And it kind of went over the red line or like the goal line, and then one of the Tampa players kind of fished it out real quick, and the ref was literally 4 feet from the net, and he's just like, no goal. So then they keep on playing down in the other end, and maybe, I don't know, 20 seconds later, the broadcast clock guys along the boards, they blow the horn to stop the play. Mm-hmm. So we're like, man, that must be a goal. I was like, heck yeah. And then next thing you know, you look up at the TV and everyone's fighting. I'm just like, okay, how did this start? So I guess Chara was skating beside, was it Maroon or?
So what I saw, it was Kucherov get a little physical down in the corner, and he kind of skated off. I don't know if he's injured or what happened, but he was not happy. And it looked to me like Maroon came on the ice, and he didn't get a misconduct, and not to my knowledge. Which I wonder if that's
snuck under the radar. But the broadcasters never picked it up either, so I don't know. But you are right, because we looked, and then when the scrum was going on and all 5 people were fighting, Hedman wasn't on.
Kucherov wasn't on the ice.
Kucherov wasn't on the ice anymore. So I think you're right. I think Maroon did sneak on, in which, I mean,
he came on after a whistle and then fought.
That's right.
Like I don't know. But.
And then, so Chara's kind of skating behind the ref, and then Maroon kind of jabs him in the back of the legs, and then Chara almost like cross-checks the ref just to turn over and start fighting Maroon. And then next thing you know, there's like 2 guys jump McAvoy, and it's just like there's people flopping all over the place and fighting. And
it was awesome.
So the rest of the game was pretty much like that.
And all those penalty minutes from then, technically happened, but technically did not happen because they had to rewind the clock.
That's what I said to him. I said, so does all this count? Like, obviously it does, but like, what do you put on the score sheet? Like, clearly it must have been 123 when the goal went in.
Yeah, technically it happened at 1 minute and 5 seconds, but because of the thing had to go back, the clock had to go back, technically get moved to 123 or whatever it was. This is very strange.
So like, yeah, time keeps on going even though it shouldn't have, and then all this penalties happened in the time that technically didn't exist in the game.
Yeah, so the penalties happened at 123 even though they didn't happen at 123.
Yeah.
I understand it, but it's kind of silly.
Yeah, so that's all I really want to talk about that game. Just if you missed it, you missed out on a good one, and definitely check out highlights, maybe even if that's all you can do, like a 5 or 6 minute highlight package. It should show some of those fights. You never know, though.
Yeah.
It's like the NHL's scared of showing fights.
Yeah, you should be able to find it. I mean, there's a YouTube channel that I recently followed called Frenzy, I believe, and he or she posts all of the scrums and fighting, even if it's just like it's not really a fight, but it's almost a fight. Mm-hmm. He or she posts that too, which I like to see. So I'm sure it'll be on there.
A lot of edits and a lot of cuts.
Yeah,
from that game. All right, so we'll finish up with that. I want to talk about the Panthers because I want to ask you if you think they can catch or pass the Leafs.
I think it 100% depends on goaltending.
So last night, Florida beat Montreal 4-1. So they're 3 points behind the Leafs, and they have a game at hand at the time of filming this. Mm-hmm. So the Leafs just went on a California road trip. They played 3 games. They only got 1 point out of those 3 games, so 1 out of 6. So pretty disappointing considering those are the 3 bottom teams in the Western Conference.
That California road trip could be the reason that they don't make the playoffs, which is unreal considering that LA, Anaheim, and San Jose are at the bottom of the Western Conference.
Yeah, they're literally the worst 3 teams in that conference.
Literally.
So right now, Toronto is still in control of their own destiny because technically if the Panthers win their makeup game or their game in hand, they're 1 point behind. So
yes,
Toronto is technically 1 point up if that's equal, but both, like I was telling you this before, like it just seems like both of these teams are so similar and that neither one of them are seemingly going for it right now. Like they're just struggling.
I don't understand it. Like you have an opportunity right in front of you because no one's going to catch you from behind. You're only battling with one other team, and neither of you are doing much. Mm-hmm. Like, what's going on? Okay,
so I want to break down the last 10 games of both these teams because they're very similar. So tell me what you think of this. So the Leafs in their last 10 are 4-5-1. Panthers are 4-4-2. So pretty similar.
Very similar.
The Leafs had a 2-1 loss against Anaheim, 1-0 shootout loss to LA, a 5-2 loss to San Jose, 4-2 win over Vancouver, 5-3 win over Florida, 4-3 win over Tampa, 6-3 loss to Carolina, which is the game that David Ayers came in. 4-0 win over Pittsburgh, a super embarrassing 5-2 loss over Pittsburgh. That was a bad game by Toronto. And then a 5-2 loss to Buffalo. So they only have 27 goals in those 10 games. So that's 2.7 goals per game, which is below what you would expect from Toronto because their entire team is made on offense. They have 32 goals against in that span. But their penalty play or their power play is only 10%. They're only 3 for 30 in those 10 games.
10% on a lineup like that is unacceptable.
And you have their GM saying that we don't have toughness. Our toughness is our power play. Right? Remember when they were saying like, why don't you have any physical guys? Which they picked up one guy recently, but he said we're going to kill you on the power play.
Yeah,
like we're not going to be a physical team. Like we are loaded up front. All our money is spent on forwards. It's all spent on offense. And then you go 3 for 30 in your last 10. But 0 for 14 in your last 5. So in their last 5 games, they have not scored a penalty or a power play goal on 14 attempts.
Do you think the players are trying to send a message that they weren't happy with?
I don't think so.
Because nothing was done at the trade deadline to fix the issues on the back end, and all the pressure is on the forwards.
Like just look at their record. They're losing to Anaheim, they're losing to LA, they're losing to San Jose, but they're beating teams like Tampa and Florida.
They've got the Montreal Canadiens syndrome.
It's like they don't get up for the games where they're expected to win, almost.
I think they're paid too much. I think they're too young and they have too much money.
I think that is definitely an issue. But if you look at Florida, they're the same deal. So they beat Montreal 4-1 last night, but then they lost 2-1 to Boston, 3-0 to Calgary, shootout loss to Chicago. So they're 28 goals for and 29 against, which is very similar. The Leafs are 27, but they're 4 for 28. So they're about 14%. So they're not doing a whole lot better, but they have one more power play goal than the Leafs in that same span. but they are also 0 for 14 in their last 5 games. So these teams are so similar.
And they play each other soon.
Yes.
That game specifically could determine which team makes the playoffs. Like if Florida wins that game, if it happened today, Florida would be 1 point behind Toronto, I believe, and maybe still have a game in hand. So things are tight, but man, one of these teams, regardless if it's Toronto or Florida, get your crap together.
That's what I mean. It doesn't seem like they want it. Like they're just not fighting for it.
Probably because they know they're going to have to play the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Like it's just like, yeah.
I'm disappointed in Bobrovsky because he had the team in front of him last year. No offense, but it was not even close to be as gifted as the Florida team in front of him now offensively. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he could get the Columbus team into the playoffs but can't get the Florida Panthers, he's not even playing right now. He's like, they're playing Dredger or whoever, I can't remember his name.
That's it,
and he's like 6-1-2 or 7-2-1 or whatever it is now. Like he's playing really well recently.
Yep. You got to ride the hot goalie.
Like, and they can't even play Montembeault because he's struggling a little bit as well. Mm-hmm. So they're playing their third string goalie. And you do what you have to do, but still, you've got Bobrovsky who's making over $10 million doing nothing.
Yep. And like it's kind of the same deal with the Leafs. They brought in Jack Campbell because their backup was horrible. Like Hutchinson was terrible.
Yes.
And Jack Campbell's been giving them a chance. The players aren't playing in front of them.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't get it.
Like Jack Campbell played really well in that 2-1 loss against Anaheim. It's just the players, like, you know what I mean? Like you have an offensive team that is way overpaid to produce offense. Like you have defensive liabilities.
Yeah.
But then you go 0 for 14 in your last 5 games on the power play, which is like supposed to be your bread and butter.
Yeah.
So
it's frustrating. I mean, as a Canadiens fan, I'm frustrated with the Montreal Canadiens. But as a Leafs fan, knowing that my team has what it has and still might not make the playoffs, I'm extremely, extremely frustrated.
I wonder if both fan bases are kind of the same, like, because they're kind of similar, but the Leafs definitely have, like, they have a lot of money invested up front. Like, we can't stress that enough. Like, you paid all your young guys, $10, $11 million, and then Nylander 7, whatever, to produce for you in the future. Like, you're not paying them based on what they did. They're just kids.
I wonder
and they have good numbers. They're just like if you look at Austin Matthews, like he's producing great numbers. He's in second or third overall for scoring right now or for goals.
Yes.
But sometimes his back checks aren't there. Sometimes his defense isn't there. Like he's not giving you a total effort, even though he's putting up numbers.
If you can score that many goals and still be impressive, but still be criticized because you know that there's more inside.
Yeah.
And there's more. I mean,
and that's what a lot of Toronto fans are saying. There is more. We've seen you play that. Like when they got embarrassed by Pittsburgh in that 5-2 game, and then they came back and played them like it was a back-to-back Pittsburgh game. They came back and played them 4-0. That was one of the best games Toronto's played this year.
Absolutely.
So if they could play like that, even 80% of that on a regular night, their record would be way better than it is right now. It's just like, for whatever reason, they're just not showing up every night. And then every time the game's over, you see Mitch Marner saying, "Oh, well, we got to find our effort." And
it's the same thing. That's what
it's like we're admitting that we're not quite doing enough and we have to figure it out. But
do you think those players actually want to play for Toronto? And I don't believe that. I'm not saying I'm not saying it because I believe it, but do you think that all they care about mostly is the money, and they know that they would have got paid in Toronto? That's why they stayed. That's why but they don't actually want to win in Toronto. They want, like Austin Matthews is from Arizona. He's getting paid now, but then he wants to go win in Arizona, or he wants to go somewhere else.
I would say
I don't believe that.
I could see Matthews leaving for sure because he only did a 5-year deal. He could have gone longer. Yes. He only took the 5. I think Mitch Marner does want to be there.
I would agree with that. I think
Nylander wants to be there. So I would say if I could see anyone leaving, it would be Matthews, and it will be up to Kyle or whoever, hopefully still Kyle, to make sure he stays. But
interesting. I wonder if Marner decides to go, if Matthews at the same time would be like, you can trade me too.
So let me ask you this.
Tight.
Do you think Florida will pass the Leafs and get a playoff spot, or do you think this is the Leafs still?
Selfishly, I hope they do. Just because I think Toronto missing the playoffs will force change in Toronto that needs to happen. Yeah, Toronto making the playoffs and going in the first round clearly does nothing.
One of those 4 main players will be moved in the summer if they miss. Yeah. For sure.
And I'd just like to see Florida in the playoffs. It's been a while. They have a better team. They have a team that should be in the playoffs this year. Not that Toronto doesn't. But
and it gives them a state rivalry in the first round.
You're creating something that should exist already and doesn't. Yeah. A rivalry between 2 good teams in the same state, Tampa and Florida.
And it doesn't
Let's get it going. Yeah, and that'd be a physical series, I think. Let's go. Let's create a new rivalry. Gary Bettman's all about rivalries?
Yep.
Let's go.
I'm all about rivalries, but I don't want any fighting or physicality.
Yeah.
It's like, what? That's what a rivalry is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll watch that and see what happens. Like I said, it just doesn't seem like either team's going for it, so hopefully one of the teams does. I mean, if they keep both playing like this, then who knows? It's a coin toss, a coin flip to see who gets in. But if one of these teams puts their foot down and says, okay, let's go, they're going to be the team that gets in.
I don't know.
Crazy. All right, let's touch on the Flyers.
Yeah, that's one where I really wanted to wear the Tampa Bay jersey because they showed up last night and I think they deserve some recognition.
Yep.
I guess we already gave them a little bit of recognition, but I can't not wear any other jersey. Like I have to wear the Flyers jersey. They're on a 9-game winning streak.
If you're an audio listener, he is wearing a Flyers hat and a Flyers jersey. He's full decked out in the Philly colors right now.
I got a rep, guys. I got a rep. They deserve some recognition. They're on fire right now. I love it. I'm not a Flyers fan. I just think they have a good story.
I think the Flyers...
And they got gritty.
I knew that was coming. I think the Flyers have been kind of cheated in a way with just poor goaltending in the last, I don't know how many years.
It's been
like they've had teams that could go somewhere. They just don't have the guy standing in front of the net to get them there.
Yeah.
So it's almost unfair to watch. Like it's
frustrating
for those fans. Totally. And now they've got a guy in there, Carter Hart, who looks like he may be the guy that's going to take them there. Because at home, he's 22-2.
Dude, Florida at home is legit.
Philadelphia
at home is legit.
Carter Hart is .944 save percentage at home now.
What's funny about that is Florida is not legit. No. They're 1-9 in their last, or 1-8, I think, in their last 9 games at home. Yeah, it's. I mean, like I said, I'm not a Flyers fan, but I think they have a good story. They don't have the typical, powerhouse up front.
No.
They're not the Washington Capitals or the Pittsburgh Penguins that are continuously competitive all the time. They're a team that's kind of sneaky. They're hard to predict, but when they get streaky and on a roll, like you kind of want to cheer for them. Plus, they've got gritty, which is always a good story.
Like their entire run lately has been sneaky.
Yes.
Like last podcast, you asked us what place do you think they're in. I think Joey said 18th.
Yeah.
And then I think your dad said 10th, and I said 8th or 9th, and it was 6th. Like,
yeah.
Like it's just nobody's really noticing them because I think a lot of stories around them, like Ovechkin hitting 700 goals and stuff like that. I think that's taking the main kind of lights.
They're sneaky, and sometimes that's the most dangerous team.
Here's my question to you: is the sneakiness over? And are they now a legitimate threat in the Eastern Conference?
No. Yes, I think they're a legitimate threat, but since I've been doing this for 3 years, I cannot predict Philadelphia, and it's because they are so streaky. 1 year, they got a 10-game winning streak, missed the playoffs.
That's right. I was just
the next year, lost 10 games and made the playoffs. So this 9-game streak means absolutely nothing to me. I think it's great for the team. I think it's amazing for that division to create even more controversy and tight races and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that they're going to keep up their pace. I think they're peaking a little bit too soon.
This shows me that Alain Vigneault is a good coach.
Oh, absolutely.
And they are completely buying into what he's selling.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I genuinely hope that they do good in the playoffs because I'm kind of tired of seeing Washington go far. I'm kind of tired of seeing Pittsburgh go far. Let the Flyers, the last time they were that close was 2010, I think, when they played Chicago. I think maybe anyways. Let's see what they can do. Give them a chance. Give Carter Hart the same chance Jordan Binnington got last year as a young.
Do you know who their next 2 games are against?
Hopefully Pittsburgh or Washington.
No, they're against Boston and Tampa Bay. The 2 leading.
Well, that's a good test.
So the next game is against Boston, and then the game after that is Tampa.
Now, are they at home? Or on?
I don't remember. I didn't write that down.
That's going to be hard to predict in our Discord.
So I am secretly rooting for the Flyers right now.
I am too. I don't want to say that too publicly, but yeah.
I mean, your team is pretty much out.
Yeah,
so that's
my team's toast.
My team is not out. My team is in first place right now. So clearly I'm going to stick with Boston, but I don't know if I would be worried about a Philly matchup with Boston. Sometimes they've given us trouble. Hence, remember that time we went to a 7-game series? We were up 4-1 in game 7, ended up losing, or was it 3-0 or 4-0? I can't remember. And then Philly came back and won the whole thing.
Yeah, I think both teams are so different than they were 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like a series between Philadelphia and Boston 10 years ago would have been incredibly physical. Both teams are so skilled now that it's still going to be physical. It's still Philadelphia Flyers. It's still Boston
It's a different
Bruins.
game now.
But I think just from an entertainment standpoint, I think that would be an amazing series to watch. And I think it wouldn't be a sweep, I don't think. I think you'd get probably a 6 or 7 game series.
Here's my question to you now. So Carter Hart, I said, was 22-2 at home. If he was playing at home with no fans because of coronavirus, would his record still be that good? Or does he feed off of the home crowd and that's why he's doing so well?
That's hard to say. I mean, there's so many things that go into that. You get to have meals at home instead of at restaurants. You get to sleep in your own bed. I would tend to believe in the kid and say that he'll play good at home regardless of how many bums are in seats.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to talk about the Ottawa Senators.
Oh, we've already spent so much time on other topics that well-deserved have that amount of time talked about them. But the Ottawa Senators...
This is the biggest news of the week.
This entire page for the video viewers.
I'm going to play a clip right now from last week's podcast where Neil basically calls me out.
Was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
It was last week. It was episode 100.
Was it really?
Anyway, I'll just play the clip. So listen to this.
And I don't like that. I'm a Canadian
It's
fan. I don't
taken
want
them a
them.
while, but it looks like they're finally taking the time to do it right.
Yep.
And we haven't talked about Melnyk in a while. Another great thing.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
You might have just jinxed it though. Tomorrow. Something.
All right, so there's Neil saying basically I jinxed it. And I did, because if you're watching on YouTube right now, this is an entire page of notes about Eugene Melnyk.
Was it the same day that was, or later that day it was announced, or was it the next day?
No, it was a couple days after. I think it was like on a Tuesday or something like that. So Jim Little, who we talked about when he was hired, was fired as the CEO of the Ottawa Senators less than 2 months into his job, 54 days.
That was so recent ago. I can remember the conversation we had of whether you think he's going to change the culture.
Yeah, like, are you going to change his culture? He came from Royal Bank and stuff like that. Like, it was literally 2 months ago or less than 2 months ago. So they said he was fired because of conduct inconsistent with the core values of the Ottawa Senators and the NHL. And they put out a really vague statement, not really offering any specific details on why he was fired. So then Jim Little came out on his own and released a statement saying that he was dismissed over a heated phone call he had on Valentine's Day of all days, February 14th, in which he swore at Eugene Melnyk, and he says the pair had a personal disagreement over his approach with the team. And then later the team came out and said that they expect to hire a new CEO within the coming weeks. So that was the news. And I was like, okay, that's really random.
Super random.
And then on Thursday, Elliot Friedman went on Sportsnet 590, which is a radio station in Toronto, and he provided additional information. And then it was almost like he was getting heat for it, so he had it all redacted. So if you went online to look for this, the only way you could find it was like a cached image, because even the episode that aired on that radio station was deleted at Friedman's request. But then he went out on Hockey Night in Canada last night and basically reset everything all over again. So we'll talk about that. So
That's very interesting.
According to him, this is Elliot, the Senators completed a report that concluded that the franchise's biggest issue is a crisis of confidence in the owner. And that's what they were yelling about.
That's amazing.
So you've got a guy that's only been with your organization for 54 days. Well, less than 54 days, because this was on February 14th. So he's basically a little over a month into his job. And he's yelling at the owner saying, you are the biggest problem.
You have literally the best person in the organization to finally stand up against Melnyk, and does, and gets fired.
Yeah.
Like, it's unbelievable.
So he said fans aren't voting with their wallets because they don't believe in the owner. So fans aren't coming because they don't like you.
Like,
That's what they were arguing about.
It's true. But what does Ottawa do now? Like, they had the guy there to stand up to Melnyk, and nothing happened.
Well, clearly Melnyk doesn't want that.
So it's never going to change. It's never going to change. And we're just going to sit here in this washer cycle of Melnyk being an idiot, and the Ottawa Senators not being competitive, and the fans not going to games.
So during the phone call, when Little was yelling at Melnyk, apparently he yelled at him for over 10 minutes. And at one point he told him the best thing that could happen to the Ottawa Senators is if you, who's Melnyk, disappeared for 12 months.
Which is true.
Yes. And like a lot of people online were like, did he mean 12 years instead? Like, clearly Ottawa fans don't want Melnyk there. So then that ended, and that was the latest update on the story. So, okay, this guy got fired for basically calling him out and telling him that he is the biggest problem and giving him, truth serum that he didn't want to hear.
Yeah.
Today, a National Post article came out. I don't know if you know about this.
No.
This that's what 3/4 of this page is about.
Oh, snap.
So the team is now saying that he was fired after an investigation that uncovered several allegations of harsh or abusive behavior, including public claims of domestic abuse from his former wife.
Oh.
So it's like, wait a minute, where's this coming from?
Yeah.
So you've had this all done for a week.
Is this a smokescreen?
We're going to get into that. So Little has disputed the allegations through his lawyer, saying that once again he was fired mainly on the language he used in that phone call, saying that, I got heated with him. I shouldn't have done it. I apologize, but that's why I was fired. So after the phone call ended, the team began an investigation into him. So you know what this sounds like to me?
Wow.
It sounds like Melnyk didn't like how that phone call went down.
Yeah.
Go find dirt on this guy.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
So the team confirmed that it began an investigation into Little after that phone call and found that his former wife published online accounts alleging abusive behavior during their marriage on a blog post. So number one, obviously you didn't vet this guy very good.
Yeah.
Even after the league came out and said, if you don't vet your guys very good, we're going to
penalize you.
Yeah, because that was in December and this guy was just hired in January. So I don't understand that.
I don't understand either.
And then it says, this is another statement they came out with based on that investigation. It's the pattern of behavior by Mr. Little within the organization which violated the team's code of conduct and the policy of the NHL, coupled with the detailed allegations contained within an online posting discovered subsequently, was extremely concerning given his conduct within the company's head office. And then, so Little's lawyers came back out and says the suggestion that the Senators terminated Mr. Little's employment because of the allegations you describe is untrue. Given the circumstances of our client's dismissal, these matters will now be addressed through the courts, which is litigation, which means he is suing the organization for defamation, basically.
Melnyk.
Yes.
So Melnyk now has at least 2 litigations ongoing.
And no money, so even if they win, they're going to get nothing out of it.
Exactly.
So then the lawyer also said that the allegations published by his former wife are not attributed to any specific source and are defamatory. Given that the litigation is imminent, Mr. Little will not be making further public statements regarding these matters at this time. So if we look at this from a broad statement, he calls up Melnyk. Melnyk says something stupid. He gets mad at him. He yells at him for 10 minutes and says, this is the reason why we can't fill our stadium. So Ottawa's attendance is averaging 12,618 in the league, which is worst. But even worse is they're only filling on average 65.9% of their arena every night.
That's unfortunate.
So it's less than...
I believe that average attendance is less than the Quebec Grand Prix.
It's 2/3 of the arena. It's 65.9. The second worst team fills 81.1% of their arena.
Jeez.
So they're significantly below percentage-wise. So a lot, like a third of their rink every night on average is empty, not counting the tickets that are sold and the people aren't there. So
that's crazy.
Little goes on this call and says, you are the reason we're not getting season ticket holders. You're the reason that people aren't coming to the games. And Melnyk just has no thick skin whatsoever. And as soon as that call's over, he's like, go get dirt on this guy. They go get dirt on it. And they find this dirt, even though they didn't find it when they were investigating him to hire him in the first place. Like, that's this just crazy. Is so bad. This makes him look so bad to me.
And he already looks so bad.
Like how do you, I feel so bad for Ottawa Senators fans. Like,
I can't even imagine. They can't do anything. That's the problem. They can't do anything.
They can't do anything.
They can stop going to games, but I mean, that's already happened. And they brought in someone to specifically address that issue. And then you fire him.
Yeah. And not only do you fire him, you dig up dirt on him and then put that dirt out publicly.
How does the NHL stand by and let this happen? That's what I want to know. Can the owners vote to, for the NHL to literally buy a franchise?
I think the other owners can do something about it if it gets to that point, but they're like a old boys club. They're all in it together. But if Melnyk, there has to be a point that Melnyk they have to have a conversation with him and say, listen, you need to step back. So Brian Burke was on Hockey Central on Friday, and he basically said the only way to fix this is to sell the team.
Absolutely. That's the only option. That's the only way.
But he doesn't want to sell it.
Because he's a stubborn old...
Yes. Who's got the thinnest skin. You can't have thin skin if you're that kind of millionaire, billionaire.
Yeah. Which, if Melnyk said that he came in for an interview, would you ask him the hard questions? Or would you ask him regular questions because you know that he won't answer the hard questions, and probably walk off. If you tried to ask him hard questions,
You have to ask him hard questions.
and he walked away from the interview and said, I'm done, would you publish that footage?
Absolutely.
Me too. 100%. Absolutely. I feel so bad for Ottawa fans. I just don't get it.
We could make a video just on all the stupid stuff he's done.
That video would be 40 minutes long.
Yeah, like, remember when the outdoor game was there? He's like,
Yes.
oh, I might move the team if things don't get better.
Yeah.
Gary Bettman, that's the only time I've seen Gary Bettman get mad at him. Being like, what are you talking about? Like, you are totally taking away from this outdoor game and putting the focus on you potentially selling this team or moving this team to a different city.
And look at the players that clearly don't want to play for Melnyk or that organization. Carlson, gone. Pajot, gone. Duchesne, gone. Turris, gone. I mean, the list goes on of players who just don't want to be there. Whether it's financial or just Melnyk in general or the city, whatever. Clearly, players don't want to be there.
And that's what we just talked about last week, was we said things are finally looking up for Ottawa in the coming years.
Yes.
They're doing things right. They got draft picks. They've got good players coming. And now you have this.
The trade deadline, I mean, the Ottawa Senators are one of the top 3 teams
Cleaned up.
in the trade deadline. And now we have this. Who's going to remember the trade deadline? Their success there? No one.
It's just so funny that I said, haven't heard anything about Melnyk in a while. And you're like, you just jinxed it.
Yeah.
Now I have a full page of notes of unbelievable. I just had a conversation with a guy just hired 54 days ago, or even less than that. I guess there would have been like 40 some days. Go find dirt on this guy. I want him out of here.
And if the cap goes up, are they going to be able to meet the floor? I don't just for fun. I'm going to go tell you a little bit about their lineup.
Okay.
Bodiger is a UFA. Tierney, UFA. Connor Brown, RFA. Duclair, RFA. Pekka, UFA. Hainsey, UFA. England, UFA. Anderson, UFA. And there's 3 more RFAs and 1 UFA after that. That is like 75% of your team.
That's a lot of work.
Those players 50% of those players could all be gone. Are you going to be able to sign free agents in June? What happens if literally no players want to play for Ottawa? What do they do to make the roster of games? They have to call up their entire minor league team? Can they do that?
So I think Pierre Dorian's the GM in Ottawa, right?
Yeah.
How much of a nightmare is his job?
Oh God, I can't even imagine. When he's done there, and it will happen, whether it's by his choice or not. I hope
No,
he is
100%.
so truthful with his post interviews.
He needs to write a book.
He needs to write 8.
Like, man, you got a stingy owner who, like I said, just thin-skinned, can't take criticism, doesn't want to pay.
It's really unfortunate.
Like, how do you build a team with that ownership and that lack of money? And you've got an arena in a place that fans don't like going to.
And it's not like we're sitting here making up hearsay or whatever. We're talking about legitimate, published information on all accounts, all the stories that we just talked about. What don't we know? What's still under the carpet that we don't know about yet and will eventually?
I wonder what happens when this goes to court and they start.
All that's going to be public information at some point.
So I didn't include the statements that his wife made on purpose because his lawyers asked the National Post to not run those statements.
Yes.
And they did anyway. So out of respect for the legal process, we don't need to know that. We just need to know that she alleged abuse and living with him was a nightmare and et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to find out more about that, just Google it. I'm sure you can find it. It's on the National Post. But I don't know. That's just crazy. I can't get over it.
And we mentioned with the coronavirus thing and also with the Ottawa situation, the cap going up. I don't know if you have any specific notes on that, but it was projected.
Oh yeah, don't get it. We're not there yet. Hey, we're there now.
Oh, sweet.
So the general managers meetings happened this week in the winter meetings. There's a couple things discussed. Number one, which was the one we thought was going to be the big news, is you had David Ayres coming in, and people were talking about how this is a huge embarrassment for the league. They're gonna,
I think they even admitted it. Didn't they?
they're gonna come out and they're gonna change this, and this is never gonna happen again. And we're gonna make sure we get a goalie that's been played at least a professional level before, and blah blah blah. So anyway, the GMs go in, they talk about it, and they're happy with how everything went down.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Like, how do you have all these people that are former NHL league officials and GMs and stuff and saying, this is embarrassing on the league. It makes them look so bad to have a 42-year-old goalie come in that's not even a real goalie. And then they go in and talk about it like, nope, this is fine.
Yeah, we're okay with it. Whatever.
You know what it is? It's because, and it was suggested I think maybe it was Joey that brought up on the last podcast. Maybe it was your dad, maybe it was you. I can't remember. It wasn't me. That's all I know. They said maybe you have to have a third goalie assigned to your team who's not technically a goalie. He's like a member of your staff, but he becomes the goalie in the event of an emergency.
I think it was Joey that said that, maybe like a trainer or something.
And he's not affected by your cap. He's like an exemption or whatever. So I think that was the option that was discussed, and the GMs are like, I don't want to spend any more money. Like, why would we spend more money when this doesn't happen very often? So.
And I think it's a thing that never, it's not that it never happens, but it happens so rarely. And there's so many other important topics like the coronavirus and stuff. Like I think there's too much on the plate that they have to worry about as it is. And they're just gonna, like, we'll deal with this later.
Yeah. It was basically a quick conversation saying, nah, we're good.
Let's use our time more valuable elsewhere.
So for 3 years, people have been suggesting that they change the offside rule to allow for a skate in the air, or to basically, it doesn't have to be on the ice, but as long as it cuts the plane, even vertically, to be allowed. So it looks like that's finally going to go through. So 14 goals were called back this year because of that. So they're saying that, we're taking away from offense, and if we would have had the skate in the air rule this year, 14 more goals would have counted.
Yep.
And I think the other GMs are starting to get on board, so they agreed they should change it. So now it just has to go ahead of the board of governors and the competition committee, but I think that's just formalizing it. So it sounds like it's going to be in place for next year.
I don't know the 14 specific goals or whatever, but could you imagine if you went back after the season ended, looked at the 14 goals, and would have figured out if this had gone in, would this team have gotten an extra point or an extra 2 points, and then would that team have made the playoffs?
That's interesting to think about, especially with how close some of these races are.
I know.
14 goals is a lot of goals.
It is a lot.
And maybe it was on games where it didn't matter. Maybe they weren't 1-goal games, or maybe that was a goal that could have turned the tide and you had the momentum and you could have, you don't know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The league also announced the new pucks and they showed them off. So they have a microchip in them, and they're going to start using them in the playoffs, as we talked about before. It has the same rubber as a traditional puck, but they're assembled in pieces around the electronics instead of a single mold. So instead of taking one mold of rubber, you've got this electronic device, and then you're piecing the mold on top of it.
Did you hear what Sidney Crosby said?
He thought there was a difference, didn't he?
He thought that he felt a difference.
Yeah.
But
see, they're claiming that they've secretly played these pucks in 9 games so far and not told the players.
Oh, really?
And they haven't heard anything extra.
That's really interesting.
They snuck them in and never told anybody, and nothing ever came from it. So that's interesting.
I wonder how they're going to hold up to...
They said they were shooting the pucks out of a puck cannon at 170 miles per hour and haven't been able to break one yet.
Okay, that answers my question.
Apparently, these pucks cost $100 each to make.
Oh, wow.
So chances are, if a puck goes into the stands, you're going to have an usher coming to you and taking that puck back and probably giving you an old puck. I don't know if they're just going to let a regular...
That's a really good question.
Because it's got all the technology and the sensors in it. And
That's a really good question. I don't know. I don't think they can police that, though.
Oh, I think they can. They've gone into the stands for things before.
I guess, but I mean, what if you brought a puck with you that maybe you faked it, or you maybe have from
What
a
are the
previous
chances
game?
of you bringing in a puck and then also catching a game puck that game?
Man, people go to these lengths. It could happen.
It does suck, though, to be able to get an actual game played puck. It's just out of chance.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't happen very much. Usually hits the net and goes back in. Like, it's not too often, like, delay a game or something, it gets thrown out. But I have a feeling if these pucks go over the boards, some usher's coming and taking that and swapping with something else. Like,
they'll give you a hat or
I think they'll give you a puck, but it's not going to be the game played puck.
Yeah. Did you see what San Jose was doing? I don't want to backtrack to the coronavirus, but did you see what San Jose was doing?
No.
They had pre-signed hats to give away. They pre-signed from the players hats to give away to the fans and stuff versus them.
See, that's not the same.
It's not the same, but at least they're doing something like to offer. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. The general managers in the meeting also expressed their disdain for the bye week and the scheduling complications that come with it. I hate the bye week. I'm pretty sure you do too.
I hate it too. And this conversation's been going on for a decade.
Yeah.
Has it not?
They're just saying that it compresses the schedule too much by having that full week off.
Yeah.
So they'll say we'll play 4 games 6 nights, 4 games 6 nights. So the league says it's going to take matters seriously and try to figure out an alternative solution for next season. So don't know what that means. Don't know if it means anything. Sounds like the bye week is still going to be in, but they're going to try to, like, I don't know. If you're losing an entire week and then the All-Star games, that's just a huge break in the season that no one's playing anything. And you have to make that up somewhere. So the schedule is going to get condensed.
Remove the bye week. Give every player, and every team 5 days off over Christmas. We got games happening on Christmas Eve and Boxing Day, I think, or maybe I don't know about Boxing Day, but there's games on Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve for sure, like early games. Yeah,
come on, like they don't need a random week off in late February, or it's different for every team. So do you give the entire league like? There's the World Juniors going on around Christmas. People are spending time with their families. Let the players spend time with their families as well. It's Christmas.
I'm with you. They also talked about the salary cap. So the cap is expected to rise from $81.5 million this season to between $84 and $88.2 for the next season.
So that means $83 million.
Probably. So that's what I said. A lot of the GMs are saying, well, this year they expected it to be 83 and ended up being 81.5. Yeah. So a lot of teams were in a crunch and they had to sell off to make it fit. So I think teams are going to be cautious until this number is official. Yeah. But this could be extremely useful for a lot of teams. Like that's a lot. If you go from 81.5 to 88, if it ever did get that high, which I would say because of this coronavirus stuff going around, it's probably not going to hit the 88. It's going to be on the lower end.
I mean, that is a significant jump. But if the projection could be as high as 88, maybe they hold off for the 2020-2021 season, maybe make it 83 or 84, whatever. And then the following season, believe that's the season that the Seattle team joins. Which is a reason why this cap is going up. Maybe that's the year that we get the significant jump. We get to go from 84 to 90 or something.
And then I think the year after that is when the new TV deal comes in the States.
Exactly.
Which may show ESPN getting it on, or maybe it's NBC again, and we don't know. But And then finally, this is a weird one, I thought. A presentation was given, which the GM said was probably the most enlightening presentation of the entire meetings, where the person giving the presentation said that the GM should have an open mind and encourage team staff and players to share more of their personality on social media, because apparently that makes fans more engaged and they want to go to more games. So by having your players and your team staff having more of a personality and presence on social media, that actually increases revenue for your team.
I would definitely agree with that, but you also run the risk of players maybe going the other way, like Evander Kane, and calling out the league. Yeah. So
the presentation said that the NHL is starting to do a better job, but it lags way behind other leagues like the NFL, the NBA, and MLB. Like I would have to think the NBA probably is on top, because it just seems like NBA stars are all about social media and they run that league. And
it's
MLB
true.
Players, I find baseball players have less personality than hockey players do.
Yeah, I would say NFL and NBA are pretty close.
So anyway, that's a wrap on the general managers meetings. Roberto Luongo, do you want to get into that?
Yeah, I mean, he had a pretty special night last night.
So he had he was the first Panther player to get his number retired.
Which, that's huge news for...
And he didn't want it. He was the one fighting this for so long. Like, they were talking to him for a long time, I guess, about when do you want to do this? And he's like, I don't know if I want to do this or not. Like
retirement ceremony? Or
like, I don't want that attention. Like, I'm not... Like, he was the one holding out, and they were like, oh no, you're the man, you're getting this. And then finally he agreed to it. And it was cool because they did it on Hockey Night in Canada, number one.
Yes.
Two, they did it on when he was playing Montreal, which is where he's from. So a lot of his people from back home, like he's now committed to Florida. Like he's a Florida man now for sure. But, his home is Montreal. So he thought that was really special to know that people from Montreal and all across Canada, because it was Hockey Night in Canada, got to see that.
Yeah, and well-deserved. I mean, this is a goalie that played incredible for two teams, Florida and Vancouver, played for Team Canada. He deserves the recognition. The whole number retirement thing is a debate for another time that I don't necessarily agree with. But if that's the first number that they retired, I'm trying to think of...
I'm kind of surprised it's the first number they've retired.
I mean, who else on Florida deserves their number to be retired?
Exactly. That's when I thought about it a long time. I was like, okay, nobody's popping.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
And he was moved, I believe, when he went to Florida originally. That was when he was still with Vancouver, right? And he was crying at the podium saying, my contract sucks. Like, no one's going to pick me up because I'm paid too much. And then Florida did, and now look at this. He's getting his number retired down.
Yeah,
and he's probably going to end up working for that organization if I had to be a betting man.
Which would be amazing for that organization.
So he played 19 seasons in the NHL. We'll just talk about him real quick. He's second all-time in games played by a goalie at 1,044. He's third all-time in wins at 489, and ninth all-time in shutouts at 77. And he's one of only 3 goalies to have played 1,000 games.
That's incredibly impressive.
Pretty cool. Born in Montreal, like we were talking about that, and he's played 11 seasons with the Panthers. So,
Yeah,
and it was
really
a good
awesome.
presentation. It was cool seeing his kids kind of just crying when his banner went up. I'm kind of surprised by that in a way because I didn't think the kids would be or understand the moment, but maybe they did, and it was just like.
I think they do in a way. Yeah, I don't.
Because especially his son looked like he was quite young, so his son wouldn't have seen a lot of his dad play. I don't think, like at least the majority, because he's been out for this year, and I mean, if he played 11 seasons, his son's probably I don't know. He looked like he was 8, maybe like I don't know 8 or 9 or 7.
Yeah.
So he would have seen a few games played, but
kids tend to replicate the emotions of adults as well. So seeing some somber adults and stuff be sad in a good way maybe made them sad.
Yeah. So right off the top, we said it is an International Women's Day today. So NBC is making history today with an all-women produced and broadcast game. It's going to be the St. Louis and Chicago game, which is happening tonight. So by the time this podcast comes out, that game will be just finishing up or playing. The game starts at 8:30, I think, our time. Podcast comes out around 10. So yeah, the game may still be on.
Yeah.
But chances are by the time you start listening to this, the game's already over and it's probably Monday or something.
Yeah.
So Kate Scott is going to be the play-by-play announcer with Kendall Kanye, or is it Coyne?
Kendall Coyne Schofield.
Okay, I'll let you say these names. Do you not say the next name too?
Nope.
Okay, and AJ Mozenko.
Well,
Let's go. I'm sorry. Mleczko. People are going to roast us in the comments over that. But anyway, those are both 2 Olympic gold medalists from the U.S. women's team.
Yeah.
Catherine Tappan, who we talked about because of Jeremy Roenick.
Right.
She's going to be the anchor, and she's anchoring with 3-time Canadian gold medalist Jen Botterill, who is the sister of the GM in Buffalo, Jason Botterill.
That's cool. That's really cool.
So that game is cool. It will be all completely produced and play-by-played by women. So everyone involved in that production is a woman for International Women's Day.
Good on NBC for doing
100%.
that. That's really special.
All right, so we'll get into Henri Richard now.
Yeah, so I mean, Henri Richard, obviously everyone's who's listening or watching this probably already knows that he passed away, which is really unfortunate. And he was honored around the league in many games. The start of the Columbus-Edmonton game that I watched last night, they had a moment of silence for him and had a little video up on the screen. So it's good to see that, you expect that ceremony in Montreal because of who he is and who obviously played for the Montreal Canadiens and stuff. But it's really cool to see that the rest of the league pay the same respect to a player that never played for their teams. So that just goes to show you how important and how well known he is league wide, which is pretty cool. But I have some stats I just want to read off about him, and then a quote that he made once. So these stats are pretty incredible. Specifically, 11 Stanley Cups.
Yep, the highest of any player ever.
Like that's unbelievable. That's really cool. 4-time All-Star, a Masterton Trophy winner, 1,258 games played, 358 goals, 688 assists, 1,046 points. He was a plus 243. He had 932 penalty minutes. He played 20 seasons, and he was only 5'7". Do you know that?
Yep, I did.
Yeah, pretty cool. They call him the Pocket Rocket.
Most of his coaches didn't think he'd ever make it in the NHL because he was too small.
Yep, and here's what he had to say. He said, I'm not sure what year he said this, but he said, all I ever had in mind was playing with the Montreal Canadiens and thinking about playing with my brother Maurice, which is pretty cool.
So Maurice was going to retire, and then when the opportunity came to play with his little brother, Henri, he stayed on for 5 more years to play with them. Yeah. And they won a cup in every one of those 5 years.
Yep, and then I think...
Henri centered his line with Maurice on the wing.
Yeah, and I think he retired then, and then I think some other good players retired as well, and then Henri became the captain and won another cup with the Canadiens, which is pretty cool. So, yeah. Really.
I was telling you this earlier. So 10 of his 11 Stanley Cup rings were stolen when his house was burglarized, and they called him up and said, we'll give you these back for a tidy ransom, and he was like, heck no. You keep them.
You keep them.
So now he's only got one. Well, he's not around anymore, but he only had one of his 11 Stanley Cup rings.
It's unfortunate that the NHL or the Montreal Canadiens didn't have more made for him or something, but maybe they did. I don't know.
And, Gary Bettman came out and said, he's a giant in terms of the history of the league. Like, this is a major player. Like, we can't do the service that he deserves because we're too young to have been around. Like, if it's too bad Brent's not here to talk about him, because I'm sure your dad would have lots to say from watching him.
Yeah, now, I don't know if you did this as a kid, but my dad, Brent, took me to games here in Fredericton where they had some of the old legends come play. It happened at the Aiken Center in the early 90s, and I believe he was there and played some hockey as an old timer.
I might have been, I just don't remember.
I think it was called like the Old Timers or the Old whatever. And like,
because I know when the Fredericton Canadiens were here, we used to go to the Aiken Center a lot and watch those.
Like Guy Lafleur was there. Like there's some big names there. So I'll have to talk to Dad, and maybe Dad, if you're listening or watching, you can comment down below and I'll clarify. But yeah, if you did go to any of those old timer games, you may have seen him play. Obviously not as an NHLer, but yeah. Unfortunate, but time. That's what time does. So. Can I talk about streaks a little bit?
Sure.
Do you know, have you been following the streaks at all? Nope. Other than Florida. I did it again. Philly. Philadelphia's on a 9-game winning streak. The LA Kings are on a 5-game
streak. I did know that.
Winning streak. Calgary on a 3-game winning streak. Now losing streaks. The New York Islanders are on a 6-game losing streak. What's going on? You bring in Pajot, you lock him down, and then you're just hanging on to a playoff spot. You've got Columbus, Carolina, the Rangers. I mean, at the pace that New Jersey's playing pretty well, there's a legitimate... If New Jersey keeps up their pace, this is a ridiculous thing to say, and the Islanders keep up their pace, New Jersey has a chance at catching the Islanders and passing them.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. Buffalo has lost 6. Dallas has lost 5. Toronto has lost 3. So I don't know what's going on in some of these cities, but they need to get their life in order. I just wanted to have a little bit of segment, and maybe we can talk about this just to get your opinion. If the playoffs started today, now it's a really ridiculous exercise or conversation to have, because by the time that you listen to this, if it's a Monday, these matchups won't be the same. Yeah. But it's just an interesting conversation regardless. So if the playoffs started today, Washington will play the Islanders. Would you be interested in watching that series?
Yeah.
I would too. Who would you be rooting for?
Islanders.
Me too. Philadelphia would play Pittsburgh.
Oh, dude, that would be amazing.
It would be amazing. I would love that series. Who would you cheer for?
I don't know.
Really?
No. I don't know if there's a series that I would want to watch more than a Pittsburgh Philly. They hate each other so much. I can't think of any two teams that hate each other more. Like the old Boston Montreal rivalry is not a thing anymore. Like it's still there, but it's not the same. Same with Toronto.
I would say currently Edmonton, Calgary, but overall Pittsburgh, Philadelphia for sure. I mean, that rivalry has been going strong for 15, 20 years or whatever. So
I would be going for Philly.
I would also be going for Philly.
Just because Pittsburgh's had cups.
Yep. Boston and Columbus. Obviously, you're a Boston fan. You're going to watch that series, so that's kind of a silly question. I would be cheering for Columbus. No offense.
What?
Yes. I'm cheering for Boston. Tampa Bay and Toronto.
I would actually cheer for Toronto.
I would cheer for Tampa Bay. I like Toronto more, but I think that I want change to happen in Toronto. I don't think they deserve to go on to the second round based on the season.
Really like listening to Toronto radio, and I just don't want to listen to 3 months of crying this summer about what they need to do. And
yeah, that's true.
Plus, I think I would rather play Toronto in the second round than Tampa.
I guess you're thinking from a Boston perspective. Yeah, I understand that as well. Okay, over to the West, St. Louis and Nashville. Would you watch that series?
That one doesn't interest me that much.
I agree. It actually doesn't interest me either.
Which, if you said that like last year
or two years ago, yeah, be like, whoa,
yeah,
that'd be a good series.
No, that does nothing for me.
I would be cheering for St. Louis in that series. You?
Probably, yeah.
Colorado and Dallas.
Oh, I would watch that.
I would definitely watch that, and that'd be a hard series for me to watch because I really like both of those teams. I'd probably cheer for Colorado because Dallas made it farther last year.
I'd go for Dallas.
Man, I'm all in on Colorado.
I'm okay. I'd be okay if Colorado won.
They're my team. Like, they're my team this year.
Okay.
Like, I'm feeling good. Edmonton and Vancouver. Canadian matchup. I'd watch every game.
I don't know who I'd go for. I'd go for Vancouver.
Because they're the underdog?
Yeah.
I think I probably would
because
too.
Vancouver was doing really well, and now they seem like they're slipping a little bit maybe. and I would like to see them hold on and actually do something.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be really good for the city. It's been a while since they've been in the playoffs. But then again, Connor McDavid probably deserves to go pretty far in the playoffs. Canadian matchups are good because it's kind of win-win regardless of who wins. You're going to have a Canadian team move on, but at the same time, you're losing a Canadian team. So, okay, and the last one, Calgary and Vegas.
That one doesn't really interest me.
I agree. I'm surprised that we kind of agree on a lot of these, but I don't know why it doesn't interest me, but it doesn't. And
I think the Vegas story is just not doing it for me anymore.
Since they fired Gerard Gallant,
and Fleury hasn't been as good, so now they brought in the new goalie, and they're just it's just not quite the same there anymore.
I like Leonard's story. I'd like to see him do good. I'd like to see Vegas win a cup, but
I'm not happy with what you did to Gerard Gallant.
Yeah, like
you lost some goodwill with one member of the post team.
Two.
All right. With the host.
Shunned. Okay, so that's it for silly playoff matchups. And I just want to talk a little bit about the last 2 weeks and points. Now, no, I want you to look at my screen here.
I can't read that anyways. It's so small.
So the top 5, I'm not going to guess the top 5, but...
In points?
Yeah.
Like overall?
Unless you want to, yeah. In the past 2 weeks.
Oh, I don't know. 2 weeks. I don't follow trends like that.
First McDavid, 15.
Oh, players. I thought you were talking about teams.
Oh, did I say teams? I meant players. Sorry.
Okay. Maybe you didn't. Maybe that's just assuming. So Draisaitl's got to be there too.
Draisaitl's 13 points.
Yeah.
They're 1 and 2. Third is Zibanejad.
Yep, because he's a goal scoring machine. I think he's got 39 goals now or something like that.
12 points. 11 of those are goals. So he's got 11 goals.
We should have talked about that a little bit. Maybe we'll talk about that sometime. He had 5 goals in one night.
Yeah.
6-5 win for the Rangers. He had 5 of those goals and the overtime winner.
And he was...
Shout out to Mika Zibanejad.
I think his plus minus was 0.
He said it's the first time someone's ever scored 5 goals and not been a positive on the plus minus.
11 goals in 7 games. Do you know what his shooting percentage is at in the last 2 weeks?
It's got to be amazing.
36.7%.
I was going to guess 40.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. In 5th is Nugent Hopkins.
That would surprise me, actually.
He was on the line with McDavid and Draisaitl for a while, but I think the last time I watched Edmonton, which was last night, the lines were different than the previous time I watched Edmonton, so I think they're doing some swapping. The name that really surprised me in this list is 4th, Kevin Fiala.
Really?
12 points.
Really?
Amazing. I love Kevin Fiala, so good job. Happy to see him here. The last thing I have on my list is Marc Bergevin. And I could talk, I could really probably make an in-depth video that's 20 to 30 minutes long. I just want to quickly say how disappointed I am with the Montreal Canadiens. And here's where we stand. Domi's an RFA. Weiss is a UFA. Evans is an RFA. I'm not worried about him. They'll lock him down. Hudon is an RFA. Folan, UFA, and Eyelid, RFA. There's some other decisions to be made as well. But Montreal has 14 picks in the 2020 draft. 9 of those are in the top 4, and then 10 picks in the 2021 draft. You have Carey Price, who's 32. He needs to decide whether he wants to end his career as a Luongo or as a player that moves on somewhere else and wins a cup, because it's not going to happen in Montreal. He's 32. He has to decide. He could, and there's teams out there who could take advantage of a Carey Price. There are teams that were built really well up front and lack consistent, good goaltending.
But do they have the $10 million to take him on?
Colorado does.
And especially if the cap goes up next year. That could be what a team needs.
Look at the front end in Colorado. You bring in a Carey Price there. Look what happened the last time that the Colorado Avalanche brought him.
He might look good in a Colorado jersey,
He
too.
certainly would. His chance of winning a cup in Colorado is tenfold over Montreal.
Not that I've ever seen a Montreal goalie go to Colorado before.
Yeah, exactly. Your number 1 center. Do you know who the number 1 center is on Montreal?
No.
Philip Deneau. And that's because you got lucky. Now, here's the thing. Marc Bergevin has won the majority of the trades that he's made, which is impressive. But he's approaching year 9 of a 5-year plan. The team is worse than what it was when he took over. They are the definition of mediocre. They don't have a number 1 center. They don't have a star scorer or superstar up front. He has to do something in the offseason. If he sits back and has an average offseason, he will be fired.
How much cap space does Montreal have right now?
A lot.
They still have it, eh? So he still hasn't spent it.
Yep. And the cap's going up. Like, he has room to do something extremely bold. He has the assets to send out to bring someone in, or to, after the draft is announced and we know the pick order, he has the he doesn't have, and I'm not sure he has the opportunity, but he has the ability to put together a package to get the number 1 overall pick to get Lafreniere. I'm not saying that's what he should do, but if he doesn't do something bold, you have to fire him. How do you not? How do you not? And it doesn't even matter if he's won all the trades and he's done a good job. Just to change it up and have someone come in and do something bold. Because right now there's some players in the league who just don't want to play in the Montreal for the Montreal Canadiens, or live in Montreal, or so.
Do you think he's tried to pick up players, but he's had a hard time because
yes,
of attracting them to that market?
Yes, absolutely.
So he basically needs to get players through trade.
Yes.
AKA
or draft them.
People that have no move clauses, because chances are if they do, they may not want to go there.
Yeah. I legitimately believe from both sides that Carey Price should request a trade specifically to a team that he wants to go to, whether it's Colorado or Carolina, or regardless of where he wants to go. That would help him. It would help Montreal relieve the $10 million you're paying him. So Montreal already has like...
It's 8 or something like that? Or?
It was 8, and then it's in between 8 and 12. I don't know exactly what it is. But then you had another 10 on top of that, so that's, we'll say 20 million. And then the cap's going up.
Say it goes up like 4. Say you have 24 million.
So $24 million. Obviously you have to do some re-signing stuff with Domi or to make other decisions. But you're probably going to be left over with between 12 and $15 million. The Montreal Canadiens cannot let $12 or $15 million sit there. While you have teams like Arizona and all these other teams just go moving up the amount of money that they are spending on players and trying to be competitive. That's unacceptable.
So do you want Montreal to go for it next year, or do you want them to be building towards the future next year?
They need to decide either one way. Either you go for it, you bring some guys in and you just see what you can do with Carey Price, or you do a total rebuild. This Band-Aid stuff for the past 15 years or 20 years ain't cutting it. And Montreal fans are sick of it, and ticket sales are way down in Montreal. It's an issue.
Really?
It's an issue.
That's what I like about Montreal fans, is they will speak with their wallets, and they'll boo you.
They will boo, yeah. That's another reason why players don't want to.
They will let you know how they are feeling.
Yeah, so,
even if it's not necessarily justified.
Yeah. Anyways, frustrating, but I do expect Bergevin to be pretty busy this offseason, because he has to be. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't, he will lose his job. So
he's already shown complete confidence in bringing Julian back next year.
Yep, Claude Julien's coming back, which I'm okay with.
Mm-hmm.
Also, he called out Kotkaniemi recently in the media, saying that he questioned his work ethic. I just don't think that's a smart thing to do for a lot of reasons. Number one, you're saying something to a player in your organization that could have been said behind closed doors. Number two, you're calling him out to other GMs, which if they were interested in Kotkaniemi, they're probably not now, because so you're even if you wanted to get rid of him,
it hurts the market.
Yeah, it hurts the market. And number two, you're sending a message to the other players in the league that if I go there and maybe if I have an issue or have a problem, whatever, am I going to be called out by the GM publicly? So you're just hurting yourself. You're just making yourself look a little silly. And
they sent him down to the HL where he got hurt, I believe, too. So all around, not a good situation for him.
No, not a good situation. But that's all the notes I have for today.
The last thing I have, it's just nothing. It's just a small thing. Everyone probably knows about it by now. So Johnny Boychuk got that skate to the face.
Yeah.
And he got 90 stitches to his eyelid by a plastic surgeon.
Like, that's
gruesome. So Larry Morella said he's going to be all right, but it's just going to take time before his eye naturally feels normal to open and close again, which is just
it's one of those situations that you can't say, like, should we implement a new piece of equipment? It was just a freak accident. Like, there's nothing you can do. Well, it's not a kick to the chest or a wrist.
I think it's another example of the visor rising, because, I mean, if your visor was down to your nose, how does a skate blade get in there? Like,
I think it came up from below and it pushed it up.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
So I don't even know if we transition to full face masks, that's not going to fly for.
Do you think if the chin straps were tight, it wouldn't have allowed that to pull up? Because when it went to pull up, it would have pulled on the chin strap and it would have kept the helmet there. It just would have bounced off the bottom.
I think that's been an issue in so many different angles for a while now. Yeah.
So Boychuk said he felt the blade get his eye. Like he felt like it went into his eye, but it was just the eyelid. So he was pretty lucky.
It makes me really uncomfortable.
So, but he was a good sport about he put out a tweet on social media saying, sorry for the late response, but my facial recognition wasn't working. I thought that was great.
It was
I'm
fantastic.
a huge Boychuk fan because he used to play for Boston. He was with Boston when they won the Cup. So.
Yep.
Anyway, that ends page 5 of my notes. So that's about all we got to say for this one. I think that was decent.
That's it.
So I'll let you shut this one down.
Oh, snap. Okay, guys. Thanks so much for listening and watching. I really appreciate it. Regardless if you are listening on iTunes or Google Play, if you could leave us a review, that would be incredible. And if you're a video viewer and you only watch the video version of this, if you have an Apple iPhone or if you have an iPhone or a phone in general, and you have the ability to download our podcast but don't listen to it audibly, it really helps boost our download numbers as well. So even if you watch on YouTube, just do us the favor and also download the podcasts to your phone as well, because that really helps us. Because as we try to get sponsorships for podcasts and stuff, they care more about podcast downloads than they do about video views.
It's almost like the YouTube stuff doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So we're trying to boost our audio downloads a little bit.
Trying to boost everything.
Trying to boost everything. Yeah, just trying to grow. So yeah, you guys have been awesome recently. Lots of comments, lots of positivity. So yeah, keep that up. I really appreciate it. Hope you're watching lots of hockey. Make sure you go over to my channel, Post Productions, and subscribe over there. We are wrapping up the Ultimate Hockey Logo March Madness bracket today. The Final Four video releases may have already been released by the time you hear this, or will be releasing imminently. So go check that out if you haven't already. Really happy to wrap up that series and get it out there. I think it was a fun series to make, and I think it was a fun series to watch based on all the positive comments that have come in. And I think Jason's working on a little bit of a blooper reel, so you can probably expect that. For any of you members over on my channel, if you signed up to be a member through YouTube on the Post Productions channel, you will see a blooper reel coming out pretty soon. So, Jason, thanks for putting that together. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited to see it. Thanks, guys, for listening and watching. We appreciate you. Subscribe if you're not. So we're also really trying to grow this YouTube channel, the Post podcast channel. So, yeah, come on aboard, and we'll catch you next week for episode 102. Adios.